Caparde! 20 ans que je l'attends, putain, 20 ans! Je suis trop content. Allez, on rentre à la maison maintenant. Ciao, je vous embrasse tous.
It's Thursday, the 16th of January in the Vendée Globe, the skipper's 67th day at sea. And as we saw there, Antoine Cornic has now rounded Cape Horn, and we could see the emotion of getting past this famous landmark. We have a little update from Yoann Richomme, just showing now that he's arrived in Les Sables d'Olonne, the crowds and the greeting that he got there. And then we hear from Sam Goodchild, and the group from 4th to 10th have got a big low pressure system which they have to navigate before they'll be able to finish the race. We then hear from Kojiro Shiraishi and his beliefs about a plum seed, and if you offer that to the sea, that it can bring you breeze. And then also from Jingkun, and he talks about Mazu, who is the Chinese goddess of the sea. We then take a look at the tracker, the leaderboard and PredictWind routing options for Sam Goodchild as he navigates that low pressure system. And then Conrad Colman gives us a really good insight into all of the ropes that are on IMOCA yachts.
The emotion you feel after a round-the-world trip's incredible. I don't know if I'd ever really dreamed of doing this one day, but it's such an amazing adventure. A rookie in the Vendée Globe sense, certainly, but always up at the front. Yoann Richomme impressed everyone with his skill and determination. 65 days, 18 hours, 10 minutes and 2 seconds. That's the time it took him to complete this circumnavigation. By crossing the finish line at 7:12 this Wednesday morning, he took second step on the podium. Before setting out, the sailor confessed to a few lingering fears. It wasn't even about breaking something, but I didn't want to miss my Vendée Globe, finish with a poor result or not truly experience it. And my other fear was not seeing anything of the journey, leaving the Zablon and returning without seeing a single piece of land. That wasn't the case, and to be honest, I was pretty amazed. The sense of wonder was palpable in the enthusiastic welcome he received along the channel, with a large crowd from Les Sables d'Olonne gathering to greet him. And while both the boat and the skipper seemed almost ready to set off for another lap, the early days of the race could have told a different story. Let me tell you something. I almost collided with a trawler on day 2 off the coast of Cape Finisterre. It could have stopped right there. I didn't tell anyone. She just passed 10 meters to my left. I was on deck, changing a sail, so it was a really close call. And that's what's amazing, when you manage to piece together all those little bits, one by one, and somehow it works. You do it the way you like to, in a racing mode, in a committed way. That's what makes me really proud. A pride shared with the crowd, who will now patiently await the arrival of Sebastian Simon, expected on Friday morning.
Yeah, all good. Hanging on to Jeremy, or trying to anyway. For some reason in the southern hemisphere it was easier than in the northern hemisphere. I don't know what he's found, or if it's just the conditions that have changed a bit, but he's put a few miles on me recently. But no, pretty happy to be hanging on to him. It's conditions when he's normally pretty quick, so just trying to cut the losses and see what the rest of the race has for us. And then some tired boats and skippers behind you. This feels like an important stage. Yeah, for sure. It's there's definitely some tired boats. We saw Biotherm lose their J2 forestay yesterday. It's obviously Boris and Tom are nursing problems. I had to drop my mainsail earlier today with a few issues on the battens as well. So yeah, everyone's getting tired for sure. And on top of that, the trade winds, it's not exactly hard conditions, but it's just this gentle slamming the whole time, which kind of ups the using of the boat. And we're on the same tack for probably been a week on this tack now, and another 3 or 4 days. So yeah, it's kind of using the systems in the same place all the time repetitively. And then from Sunday time, I guess we've got a big depression coming in, which looks pretty nasty. It's got over 50 knots in it and over 8-9 meter waves. So yeah, it's not looking that straightforward. And yeah, trying to find the right balance of trying to get through that without losing too much time and distance, without breaking the boat, which we're all getting tired, is going to be a difficult one. But yeah, keeping a close eye on it. For now, we haven't really got a choice to make, so hopefully it will evolve into something a bit kinder or a bit nicer, or at least an option B, which is a little bit kinder. But yeah, wait and see. 3, what's what's the thought about this low now in terms of preparation and routing? The season will determine in terms of route. Sorry, I kind of already replied to that question. But yeah, so no, we're looking at it closely at the moment. Basically, there's nothing we can do. Well, there's nothing we can do. At the moment, there's no choice to make. There isn't really an option around the west. There's maybe an option around the east, but we have to get through the ridge first. And yeah, I guess at the moment there's three options. There's one which is go into it and try and be careful. There's one which is try and skirt the south edge of it where there's a bit less wind and a bit less waves. And the third option is slowing down, letting the worst of it blow through and then hooking into the back of it, which would obviously a little bit annoying to basically wait for the others and then head off. So at the moment those are the three options, but like I said, it's 3 days away, maybe even 4 days away before we actually have to make a decision. So just looking at the options, seeing how it evolves, and crossing our fingers that it evolves into something a bit nicer, a bit further north, or a bit less powerful. Any of those would do me fine. And otherwise, yeah, all good. It's home starting to feel quite close. It's kind of the first time in the whole Vendée the race started to feel a bit long, because I feel like there's a little bit of a reference in time now as to the finish next week. So yeah, trying to not overthink the finish and just keep like I've been sailing for the last couple of months. And yeah, obviously try and get through this low unscathed, which is it's just easier said than done.
はい、風がないときにどうするか、私、水産出身の私は漁師の方から風のないとき風の吹かせる方法が実はあるんです。梅干しの種を海に投げると風が吹くと言われてます。で、嵐の時はおにぎりの中に入ってる梅干しの種飲み込めってね、よく先輩から言われました。はい、ということで梅干しの種を捨てて風を起こしたいと思います。梅干し持ってきてます。頼むよー。これで大丈夫。風吹きます。
好了，明天就要过合恩角了。你看，今天我收到了很多的马祖的护身符，保佑我们平安。这是我们中国的海神马祖，保佑我们一路平安。保佑。好了，朋友们，大家好，今天是1月14号，是我们航行的第64天了。然后今天准备要开启我第10个州的礼物了。然后我们现在正在航行去合恩角的路上，预计明天就会通过合恩角。然后我们刚刚经过了一场风暴，现在风力开始减弱了。然后准备开启礼物包啦。好了，里边还是有一封给我的信。马祖保佑，马祖是我们中国的海神啊。好了，这是我第10个州的礼物了。
On the tracker, we can see that Seb Simon is set to be the next to finish. He's making his way along the French coast at the moment. Quite a few tacks as he makes his way southeast in that northeasterly breeze that's relatively light. So while he only has 145 nautical miles to go to the finish line, we're expecting him to arrive in Les Sables at around about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock on Friday morning. There is no let-up in the battle for fourth as they pass the latitude of the Cape Verde Islands, with Jeremy Bayou in the lead and Sam Goodchild just to the east of him on his hip, a few miles behind now, 14 miles, but still pushing as hard as he possibly can. And then Paul Milhat in 6th, followed by Nico Lundven in 7th place. We've got Justine Metro in 8th, who's taking the eastern option, while both Thomas Rouillon and Boris Herman are taking this western option. I've been trying to work out what they're doing here, and I think it may be trying to look for a more favourable wind angle to the west, but as to whether that's going to pay off, especially with the extra distance, I don't know. Then we've got the group from 11th to 13th with Benjamin Dutroux just ahead of Clarice Kramer. And now Sam Davis, as we saw, went into the Northern Hemisphere in the last 24 hours. Things are really interesting in the South Atlantic at the moment. And while Roman Atanasio has managed to pull away quite a bit from his pursuers, we can see this west versus east battle is playing out incredibly well. We've got this western bunch at the moment who look like they have got the advantage, and Conrad Colman has come right back into it. In fact, on the leaderboard he is now ahead of Jean Le Cam, who was the leading daggerboard boat. The leading daggerboard boat is actually now Benjamin Ferret in 16th place, and he is part of this whole western group. And so how this is going to continue playing out, we will see, as the wind angle isn't quite as good on the west, but it is changing the entire time. The forecasts here are notoriously unreliable, and so it really is a bit of a gamble as to which way you go, but at the moment, west looks best. A little bit further back in the Southern Ocean, we've got a group who are either side of a high pressure system as they make their way past Uruguay and onto the Brazilian coast. And in this group, we have got Violet d'Orange and also Kojiro Shiraishi, who we heard from earlier. Then it's on to the group who have rounded Cape Horn. We've now got Oliver here, who is passing to the east of the Falkland Islands. And then Antoine Cornic, who we saw just so emotional and happy to be past Cape Horn. And then we heard from Jingkun, who we heard from before he'd rounded Cape Horn, but he's now on his way up the South Atlantic, and it looks like he's taking the gap to the west of Staten Island. The leaderboard at 0600 hours UTC, we've got our two finishers, Charlie Dallin, the winner of the 2024 Vendée Globe, and Yoann Richomme, who finished second. His would have been a record as well, and it's an amazing performance for a rookie there. Seb Simon now 145 nautical miles to the finish. Jeremy Bayou leading the charge of that group, who's still 2,300 nautical miles to finish. He's got a 14-mile lead over Sam Goodchild in 5th place, with Paul Milhat just behind. And then rounding out the top 10, we've got Nico Lundven, Justine Metreau, Thomas Rouillon and Boris Herman. The PredictWind routing options for Sam Goodchild, compiled by SailWorld.com's New Zealand editor Richard Gladwell, show initially using the trades between the Cape Verdes and the Canary Islands, and then a little band of light pressure before this low pressure system that he talked about comes in. There is one routing option to the west of the Azores, but the vast majority going to the east, and then using these southwesterly breezes that it'll provide up the Spanish and Portuguese coast, and then into the Bay of Biscay. It looks like they won't have those easterly breezes that the leaders had as well, which will make their progress in Biscay much, much quicker.
There sure are a lot of ropes on this boat. All of them come from Marlow, which is a super cool company that makes great ropes out of the UK. And I will explain to you how they work and what they are. So as we look out this way, you can see first of all a 3-to-1 purchase for the backstays. So they go up there, and then they are pulled forwards by this rope that keeps them both away from the mainsail, so they're not chafing, and also stops them getting tangled when I take reefs. And then if we start here on the port side, you can chase the spinnaker sheet going up this way. So we're currently sailing with the A3 Jenica, and this is its sheet. And look at that. It is operating at 2.5 tons of tension on one little rope that is smaller, a lot smaller than even my little pinky finger. So that's just incredible. And then here we have the Kojiro sheet, and here we have the main sheet. And so they go into this bank of XX power clutches from Spinlock, and these are absolutely fantastic. And the fact that they can hold the full working load of these sails, 2.5 tons, means that I get to do peeling and complicated maneuvers. This next bank here of the ZR clutches, they control all of the lines going forward for the 3D so that ring up there with the J3 on it allows me to control the shape of all the foresails. So that's what's going on there. And then I've got two jib sheets, and so here we've got the J2 and the J3 coming up onto this winch. So when I'm using a staysail, then the small one goes on the back winch there, and then the primary winch that has the A3 on it, and then these are all tidied away here. With so many kilometers of rope, you have to be super anal about tidying up all the time. And then now we come up here into the potentially quite intimidating part of the boat. This is called a piano, and this is made with a different kind of technology. We've got this big block of aluminium that was custom made for this boat, and all set up with these textile blockers. And I use these purely because just look at the density here. You know, it is absolutely unbeatable to get so many ropes in such a small area, and to be able to control them with these little pull lines. And so this is actually a system that was invented by a friend of mine, Julien Barnet, and these textile blockers have revolutionized the way that we build these boats and the way that we operate them. So to give you an idea about how they work, is that you can pull to release, and then with that little knot there, then you can block them off. So that's now in its open position, that's now in its closed. There's some elastic that pulls them forward here. And to give you an idea, there are, I think I counted this correctly, 34 ropes that come into here, plus then of course the trip lines. So these are the remote controls for the other Spinlock ZS blockers further forward on the boat. So we've got two bowsprit blockers, and then one for the J3, one for the J4. These ones here control constrictors in the boom, so these are my reef lines controls. And then if we go from left to right, or port to starboard, we've got the control for the mainsail hook here, and then we've got the mast rotation, the lazy bag, the daggerboard up. This one's broken, but I need to, anyway, that's a Cunningham. Here we've got daggerboard down. Here we've got the tack lines. So we've got the two bowsprit tack lines, and then everything is color coded. You see pink and yellow here. You see pink and yellow up here. So those are the J3 and the J4. And this is the mainsail down, because when I take a reef using these lines, these are all color coded. Green is 1, yellow is 2, red is 3. So that means it's getting hotter as you take them. You need to pull down the mainsail physically because it doesn't come down with gravity because there's so much friction. And then reef lines, and then we're into the halyards, and so we're into, of course, color coded again. So pink is J4, J3, J0, fractional, main sheet. That's on a hook, so there's no tension on it at the moment. And then masthead. And then here in the middle, we control the lines for the shape of the mainsail. So we've got the Vang and then the Cunningham. And then we're into the furling lines. And so again, color coded 4, 3, 2, 0 masthead. And then we go to the other side. And we're into the daggerboard down, daggerboard up, mast rotation, and lazy bag. Again. Now these lines, of course, they're super long, and the masthead halyard is more than 70 meters long, and so they all go here. The main halyard is down there, and then the furling lines go on this side, and they're all super tidy on that side. And then we come up onto the starboard side, and lines nicely tidied away. Main sheet there, lazy sheet for the A3, J3, J2. Back into our Spinlock banks here with the high load and the low load ones, and then onto the backstay. So these are runners. There's no fixed backstay on these boats, and so lots and lots of tension in there. Basically 2 tons in that rope. You can see it's super tight, and that multiplied by the 3-to-1 purchase. Going up there means that we get to hold the mast up. So that is a tour of the cockpit. This being a solo sailing boat, everything comes back to the cockpit, and that makes it super easy for me to maneuver the boat by myself. Otherwise it would be completely impossible. And then as you've seen, I've got some incredible partners in Spinlock and Marlow that allow me to operate this boat. But one thing that is super cool about these ropes made by Marlow is that the color part, the polyester, is recycled from ocean plastic. So that is plastic that has been fished out of the sea, melted down, and then turned into other products. So that is super cool. That's their blue line. And then the black, that is a Technora, so an aramid, similar to Kevlar, in the same family, and that is super abrasion resistant. And so that's a mix there that is super abrasion resistant. And actually, there's one rope on this boat that has a purely polyester cover, and that's the one that is broken. We do really need these mixed covers with Kevlar or aramid or Vectran that allow it to withstand the super high loads that are generated on this boat. And then certainly when you ease them under load, it's quite dramatic because there's so much friction and so much load that the ropes actually smoke and can sometimes burn themselves, even with just a couple of centimeters of movement, because the friction is so high. One thing that's unique about Marlow as well with their ropes is the construction of all ropes, but is in two parts. There's this cover here. I'll put that in the bin, and then there's the core. And so the core is Dyneema, and that's this incredible material that allows us to carry these super high loads, and that is actually bio-sourced, so it's made out of beans. So the oil that makes the plastic is derived from a vegetable source, and that's one of the ways that we reduce the carbon and energy footprint of this boat, is by obviously using the material and these ropes for as long as we possibly can. And so great durability helps with that. But then of course using recycled plastics where we can, using bio-sourced resins and plastics where we can, and yeah, it's astonishing. So welcome to my life. Lots of ropes.
Thank you for watching today. We'll continue to bring you all the latest from the Vendée Globe, so please do subscribe to our channel using the button down here. Many thanks to all of you who already have. Please also take a look at sailworld.com and yachtsandyachting.com, where we bring you so much more from the world of sailing.